Everybody tells you that getting onto the property ladder and buying your first home is one of the best things you can do in life. It's your biggest purchase and you should strive to try and achieve it as young as possible, or at least with some sense of urgency to get onto the property market. Now, I've personally been there and done that, and let me tell you that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. I'm not saying that property is incredibly bad and very, very not good. It is one of the greatest wealth builders on the planet, if done correctly. Like I said, I've had first-hand experience with real estate, and while it has significantly amplified my wealth due to timing, it has also at the same time felt like an incredible financial burden and weight over my shoulders. So in this video, I'm going to break down why owning a home isn't all that it's cracked up to be, especially in today's economy. Now, one of the biggest myths around real estate is that it automatically makes you wealthy by owning a home. And while this can be true, you can definitely be wealthy on paper, the reality is that you do not have access to majority of that wealth unless you sell the home or take on more debt by borrowing against it and pulling out that equity, which just further increases the debt that you owe to the bank. And you see this everywhere, especially in Australia. You see ads about escaping the rent trap, and a lot of people say renting is throwing money away. But in reality, renting could actually save you a significant amount of money. See, when you own a property, it's not just the mortgage repayments. You don't just owe the bank money every month. There's a lot more that goes into it. And when I first started building my own home and actually experiencing all of it firsthand, I didn't think that the whole property taxes, rates, water, etc., I didn't think that was a really substantial deal or a big amount of money. But I'm telling you right now, it's a substantial amount of money. We're talking thousands of extra dollars a year that you have to pay just to own the home and just to hold the home. So when you're renting, you don't have any of these costs. The landlord eats all of these costs and you just get to live there and pay the weekly rent. When you own the home, you're taking on board significant amount of additional costs just to hold this piece of land, this piece of property, this asset. And while real estate does appreciate in value at a modest 3 to 5% on over the long term, 3 to 5% a year, and leverage does play into it, where you can essentially put your money down onto the house and the bank will lend you the rest of it, essentially leveraging your money. This can build a significant amount of wealth over the very long term, but you also have to take into consideration all of the additional costs and drags that come along with owning this piece of property. Whereas you could get a similar or if not better return by just investing the difference into the stock market with literally zero of the downside or hassle. Put this into perspective for you guys. My water bill when I was renting, as I'm a fly in fly out worker, I'm only at my home half the year, so my water bill was $20-30 a month, if that. For example, now just because I have a piece of land, I have to pay rates on this water, and my water bills are like $200, $300 every couple of months just to have it existing there, which is just absurd. On top of these fees, I also pay strata, and I also have to take into account maintenance, which is about 1% of the property value every year. So that's another expense that I need to account for, as things will eventually break down. So when I first got into earning decent money and investing, I was about 24 years old. Now, I started reading a lot of books about financial freedom, and I discovered this whole movement called Financial Independence Retire Early, or FIRE for short. There are many ways to achieve the goal of financial independence. People have done it through real estate, people have done it through shares, people have done it through businesses. When I first started learning about these different investments, I really liked the idea of the stock market. Being able to own part of a company and receive dividend payments was just such a cool concept to me. And so I was working and I was earning a modest salary, nothing too crazy, and I was investing in individual companies because that's all I knew about at the time. Eventually I saved up enough and made a little bit from the shares that I could actually pull it out and put it down for a house and actually build my first home. And the reason I did this was because after I did the basic calculations, came to the conclusion that it would cost me a similar amount to rent there wouldn't have been much difference between renting and simply owning a house in terms of price on purely a mortgage repayment front. But what I didn't account for was all the additional costs that go into real estate, and it seriously adds up. The thing about people who have made a lot of money over the past decade of real estate is that, especially in Australia, there were a lot more favorable borrowing terms, interest rates were lower, banks were lending people out a lot more than what they could probably even handle, and people were able to accumulate a lot of assets in a very short amount of time. And also, the last 10 to 20 years has been a significant boom in real estate in Australia, which means a lot of people have actually made a lot of money from real estate. However, nowadays, those days seem to have passed, and it is a lot more difficult and challenging to actually achieve this sort of rapid accumulation of assets due to debt to income ratios and more tighter lending terms from the banks. So going back to the stock market, one of the greatest benefits of investing in the stock market is the liquidity. I can invest in a business. If I need money for an emergency or for whatever reason, I can literally just sell my shares. I can literally just sell a portion of my shares, and within 2 business days have that money straight into my bank account. With home equity or money in real estate, I can't just go and sell a few bricks of the house and receive that money. It doesn't work like that. It's a lot more illiquid and immobile. It's very, very fixed and just solid in place. It takes a bit more to actually be able to access that money. You have to go through banks, you have to go through documents, forms, going back and forward with mortgage brokers to actually access any of that money. So by simply just renting and investing in the share market over the long term, I guarantee that you could probably beat home ownership in terms of investment size and net wealth at the end of a 10 to 20 year period. Another thing with real estate is that it is a very long-term game, as there are even more costs involved with buying and selling. You have to pay something called stamp duty, selling fees, advertising, marketing, all this sort of stuff. It can eat into a significant portion of the gains that you think you would have made from the actual equity and capital growth of the property. This is just on top of taxes. If it's not your primary place of residence, then you would have to pay a capital gains tax on that. And this is on top of selling costs. So here's probably the main reasons why you would actually want to buy your home to live in. And that is, you found a place that you want to live for the very long term. We're talking at least 7 years. And this is somewhere that you want to put down roots, and you're buying a house that you can comfortably afford after you've calculated and budgeted for the mortgage repayments, the maintenance costs, the property taxes, the strata if there is any, the utility rates, and any other additional costs that come into your area of real estate ownership. Once you've calculated all these and you've determined that you can comfortably afford that, then that's probably going to be a smart financial decision. What you don't want to do is leverage yourself up to the maximum amount that the bank will possibly let you, making your mortgage repayments significant, leaving you pretty much scraping the barrel at the end of every month and struggling to actually get ahead financially, because that is what a property like that will do to you. It will put you in the ground, and it will not let you out of the ground for a very long time. So that's my advice when it comes to real estate. And I think that most young people today probably better off investing in a broad-based stock market index fund and just renting, man. If you can reduce your costs and try and get a share house if you're young and you're keen to do that, then you're going to be so much further ahead than somebody who's got a massive mortgage and all their money is tied up in that house and they can't actually do anything with it. One of the number one rules of investing is to just keep your expenses as low as possible. So you don't want your mortgage repayments to be a significant amount of your take-home pay. You do not want that. That's my advice, guys. Don't buy into the real estate hype. If your goal is financial freedom, there are other ways. And that's it. That's all from me, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like. That'll be greatly appreciated. And until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Stay juicy. Peace out.